Hello, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of My EdTech Life. I am excited to be here with you all. And yes, it's a little unusual, a little odd hour. It is Monday morning, but I am excited to be here with you nonetheless. We did have a weather day today due to the Super Bowl. So I guess, as you know, Super Bowl day after, you do get a little weather day for some reason. But anyway, I am excited to be here with you all today with a wonderful guest who's joining us all the way from Estonia, that it's about 5,700 miles away here from Texas, where I am at. So I'm excited to welcome Märt Lume to the show today. And we're going to be talking about AR, VR, and Futuclass, which is an amazing, amazing platform that deals with revolutionizing science education through the use of augmented and virtual reality spaces. So really excited to be here and talk to you all about today. But first, I always want to say thank you so much to all our audience members, to all our viewers, our subscribers, our followers. Thank you so much for all the likes, shares, and follows. I really appreciate you making my EdTech life what it is today. But again, let's go ahead and get started. And Märt, how are you doing this morning, Märt?
Doing good, more like an evening over here. But
Ah,
yes, we've had a good day. I have a little baby, so three walks. Yeah, sharing good family time and then working as much as I can in between. So it's been a good day.
excellent. Well, thank you so much for making this happen. And I know, again, with different time zones, things get kind of tricky and so on. But thank you so much for being here, guest on the show. And I'm really excited and thankful that you reached out because more and more, technology is changing. We see everything, coming into the education space, all the great tools that are out there. And the platform that you have, I've been reading a little bit up on it. And I'm just really excited to hear your story. But before we get into Futuclass, if you can just introduce yourself to our audience members, viewers that may not know the work that you do, if you can share a little bit about your experience in this AR VR landscape.
Yes, I've been in. I'll maybe talk a bit later about the kind of bigger background picture. I've been VR AR since 2017. I was also mesmerized by the medium's capacity to basically transform a human being in a way. If it's an experience that is really powerful, it can give you so much so quickly. And this is especially true for education and training. And therefore, we also I lived in North America a good chunk of my life, but then I came back to Estonia, let's say European side, let's say 2015 or so, and I've been into Estonia has a really like thriving startup landscape, so it's really easy here to start a company. It's our like country's pitch deck almost, but it takes like 12 minutes online and off you go. So every student has a startup more or less, and some of them work out, many of them don't, but you learn, which is very good. And mine already had some experience before, and yeah, so basically it only felt natural to combine doing something useful in virtual reality and augmented reality and my background in game design, and also the team I found. I mean, it all kind of pointed towards this need to make basically fun, most engaging possible way to learn science topics. So that's what we're working on at Futuclass. We're basically making a platform which is for schools and for both home users to learn science in, and we're kind of going at it at the more gamified kind of first few years at school level. We're starting from there with chemistry and physics, and we're building up from there.
Excellent. Well, that's great to hear. And, it's very interesting, like you mentioned, your experience that you have and where you're located in Estonia and working on this, coming up as a startup, and the work that you are already doing. I mean, looking at your website too, as well, what it is that you're offering. And of course, how the lessons are highly effective and looking into this, the gamified version. So it seems like you're really covering a lot of angles as far as what you are providing through this platform, which is great because through my experience, I see that there may be some platforms that have, maybe one or two things that, are going really well, but then they're still missing a couple of things. And here it seems you've really taken the time to look through, to research, to see what needs are being had at the school level, at the student level, at the learning level, and really implementing a little bit more of that. So, tell us a little bit about first of all, the inception of Futuclass. How did that idea come about?
Yeah, and thanks for that compliment as well. We have been at it for 3 years, so it's everything comes bit by bit. You test, you see how it works in schools, and there you add features to your product, your takeaway. It came in two directions actually. So myself, as I mentioned before, I have a game design background. I lived in US a few years, East Coast, and Canada, BC, Vancouver for a good 10 years. I went to study my dream thing, game design, back in 2004. And then I graduated. I worked in a bunch of different places. I did some educational games for the university. Then I worked for an animation studio. Then I eventually landed up at a company called Tiny Speck, which is really notable because, and I was there really early. I was the first employee, and this was the very accomplished team who had built Flickr, and they actually built what is currently Slack, which probably many people are using every day. But before that, they had a game. So many people don't know this. It's a very exciting story, but we built that game for 4 years. It was kind of a cult hit, I guess you could call it. Some people really loved it, but it wasn't meeting its commercial goals. And after that, I was basically had a choice. Do I want to do something more serious, or do I want to go on to mobile games? Because that was all the rage back then. And mobile games didn't have quite this immersive qualities I was looking for. So then I was a project and product manager in a few different also interesting places, but they're maybe not so relevant to mention here. But yeah, 2017 is when I got back and fell in love in VR. And then 2019 is when I met my team in Futuclass. I actually was looking around for educational opportunities in the region, basically. And then I found these guys, and they had made a VR arcade, like the biggest one in Estonia, which and they discovered that all the kids come in, go crazy, play Job Simulator, pour printer in the coffee, like really excited, the best thing in the world. But they don't really like. You could use this for education. Why isn't anybody seemingly doing anything in that direction? So they started working, and then we kind of met. It was like the melding of the minds, and as this, Estonia is like really, we're quite innovative in education overall, like successful small country, and it's really easy to access like the best teachers, schools, and to kind of yeah, there is this joke, not joke, but the saying that the prime minister is just a phone call away. You don't maybe know directly, but you know the person who knows the number definitely. It doesn't mean that you talk all the time or anything, but that's how connected everything is. So using kind of the digitalization strength of Estonia and this experience with VR and game design put together is, I think, what gives us like a really interesting chance at kind of taking a shot at this new way of learning, basically.
Yes, absolutely. And talk about new ways of learning, going through your website. And in a little bit, what I'll do is I'll actually pull up one of the lessons from your website, just the video preview portion, which I absolutely love. What I love about your website is everything is right where it needs to be, and it's easy to follow. And then, of course, the previews of the lessons, looking at it and seeing, the interaction, the explanation. And that's why I mentioned that it really seems that in these 3 years, that you have been going at it, putting pieces together and building your team, and of course, building the platform. It seems it is very robust, and it offers a lot of what education and educators need to provide, this type of learning to their students. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. And we talked a little bit about Prechat. Uh, how accepting is this technology, or how well accepted, I should say, is this technology in Estonia where you're working at in those schools?
Yeah, very good question, and I think it's in every country. So we're in about 10% of Estonian schools. It definitely doesn't. You have to work and promote and educate people, educate the market, so to say. The factors that we have found kind of critical is you need to have a cheerleader or the person who is driving the interest from the school side. Um, so that's like the key component. Then often the different grants that have been given out have been really helpful. So often a school writes that we need whatever 10, 20 headsets, and there's a project they write, and then they get grant money from it. There are different ones floating around. I'm sure some opportunities like this in every country. So that's been really usually when we do our bigger kind of wave of sales. And we also give webinars, so that's how we educate either people who are so we also have a webinar, we have a mentoring program. So a mentoring program is for teachers who are already using Futuclass and all the ways how they could make the most of it. and webinars are basically educating the market, telling teachers sharing their stories, so they can really see how it can work. We also have a blog post, educational games. I believe there's 72 of them now that are offered in standalone VR devices. So we kind of publish an update every quarter. I think there also you see, so Futuclass is obviously what we are kind of representing and wanting everybody to try and know about. But there is a number of other games also in art, in different disciplines like language learning, music, math, or what have you. And then for the school, it becomes more and more of an attractive offer, basically, by knowing that they can do a lot of stuff on these headsets. And also, basically, for every class and every age, there are things to experience, which really are as engaging as they can be, possibly, right? So VR is pretty exciting. Not for
Yeah.
everybody, but for most people, I think it's very exciting.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Like you said, you definitely need to have those champions in the schools, those pockets of innovators, those teachers that are willing to take a risk and really just take that chance to try something new and present the information in a new way and a new innovative way, and in a way maybe just thinking too of how this can prepare our students for the future of learning, also for the future of work. As you know, a lot of things, are in these platforms, AR, VR, you can do a lot of training through this. Yeah, doctors use it. There's, all sorts actually of really career choices. You have some sort of simulator that can be used. And why not introduce something like this, not only in a specialized classroom like that here, they would have something like career and technology, but even just in the general education classroom, it would be something that would be wonderful for students to really experience. Now, my question to you is also, like, you said that you've got those cheerleaders, you've got those teachers, you offer those services. Now, what are some of the biggest barriers that you may have? Because I'm going to share with you what our barriers are many times here in a lot of school districts is when a new technology piece or instrument such as AR, VR comes in, and now you're involving something that needs headsets, and you're involving something that may need some additional access that maybe current chief technology officers don't want to give, or for the fear of cybersecurity and information and data. What are some ways that you've been able to overcome some of those obstacles?
Um, yeah, so we, so overall, there is, it's a pretty big topic. So there is a consumer version of the headsets that we're talking about. Usually it's Quest and Pico are the two kind of leading ones. And then there is enterprise version. And actually the education is kind of in between. It's kind of enterprise, but obviously a lot of the schools that buy them would rather prefer to have the consumer version. So that means you have all the options that a consumer has theoretical. You can open a browser, you can do stuff. Unless, of course, there are different software you can put on it to kind of control that part. So there is, so there are some, we have found that some schools kind of care about this security a lot, that they only want to limit the usage to the particular use case, and that being controlled by teacher, what exact app they have open at any time. So that we can support. And also there are other schools that just want to have the version that everybody has. And you can actually, so Futuclass has like a teacher portal where on the web you can see anytime where each student is at and which module they are connected in, what's their progress. So you can really easily detect if somebody is not doing what they're supposed to do. So we have, I
Excellent.
guess, solved it with this web tool for our software. But yeah, if you're giving like an art lesson or something else where these web tools do not exist, then you kind of have to trust, I guess. I mean, in some sense, there isn't really any data that the device collects or that the app can collect, which is in anyhow harmful that I can think of. And the student, as far as visiting some web pages or things, you can also do it on your phone anytime or in your laptop. So I don't know if I think it's a pretty minute problem. I think usually instead we find the benefits outweigh this risk quite a bit. And one of the ones I'd like to mention is that we really discovered that this isolation that VR offers is a real avenue, like a Trojan horse, almost into the minds of the students that are just not that excited by default about learning often. Either they have kind of short attention spans, or they just, in the back seat, you know, misbehaving in various ways. And suddenly, when they're in VR, it's like all gone. They're like as involved as like what happened here. So we really find this. It's really inclusive in a sense that all the students are super into it in this purposefully designed environment, interacting and learning. So
Excellent.
yeah, I'd like to conclude that I think the benefits outweigh the risks of security.
Absolutely. And I agree with you on that. I mean, we're talking a little bit about pre-chat, and I agree with you that oftentimes the benefits do outweigh those things or those barriers that are put up. And oftentimes it's due to just not wanting to or look at it, or maybe not knowing how it's done or how to implement it. But, sometimes it really, we just really need to start that conversation with a lot of chief technology officers that are out there, and understanding, yes, cybersecurity is a risk, but are we looking at all possible venues to not put barriers to student learning and enhancing student learning and moving innovation forward? Because oftentimes that's what gets us stuck in doing things the way we've always done them and expecting different results, but we don't get them. So yeah, I absolutely agree. I have a question here, Märt, from we have a LinkedIn viewer, and she says here, do you also have experiences in soft skills teaching through AR, VR, or XR in students or teachers, such as empathy, resilience, etc.? Thank you. Flavia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Flavio. Great question. The short answer is that no, because it takes a while to build like really high quality interactive experiences. So we have focused on the science subjects. But I can recommend Body Swaps. It's a UK based company. They're quite good. I think they're focused on enterprise, but I think they also have lessons that apply to everyone, which is specifically teaching about soft skills, how to like act in different tense situations, how to diffuse things, how to spot the behavior that's kind of uninclusive, let's say. And so yeah, Body Swaps is my first thought. But
Excellent.
you're absolutely right that I think there are several more companies. I just can't think of them on top of my head, and that is also a really great field for VR to basically change people into towards the more positive outcomes, or like ways of behaving and living.
Excellent. Thank you, Mart. And I did want to touch back also on one thing that you mentioned as far as student engagement, which is something that I do agree with you. Many times as a former classroom teacher for many years, there was often students that, were done with their work very easily. I mean, it was something that was done quite quickly, or maybe students that, just found it a little difficult just to sit still and so on. It didn't mean that they weren't learning. It was just, I had to just, present the learning in a different way so that they can be engaged and so on. But it's very interesting that you mentioned, it's like once they put on that headset, that isolation where they're just zoned in and engaged, I can definitely see that being very helpful for many students that otherwise might not be engaged with the lesson. And now that they're fully immersed in it, just completely being part and in a lesson is something that I think could be very useful, which kind of leads me to my next question to you also, which is what's the impact that you've seen of Futuclass in Estonia within the schools that are currently adopting it?
Yeah, so we measured like kind of short term, like let's say reaction balancing. I think it was 62%. Like basically in half an hour, you can learn how to balance reactions, which might have taken you, depending on student, of course, but could take you like several full lessons or even a few weeks. Um, so the numbers, actually, we're running like a bigger test now, and we don't have the results yet. But it's definitely engagement. I think is the number one value that a lot of people who otherwise would not think much of necessarily about kind of becoming interested in chemistry that deeply. They do, and the other one is that when they do get involved, then the rate at which they are learning is a lot more faster and efficient due to the kind of immersive nature of the medium. And I should also mention we have lesson plans for teachers, and we have like quizzes you can take before and after. So how we measure this, one way is that we do the test on a particular set of information before, and then after playing, and then after that session, we can see the rate of studying. You can, of course, these numbers can be manipulated in different ways, so we're trying to be as objective as possible. So therefore, if I say 62%, it kind of depends what, but the fact is really that they are very fast learning a thing, and they have a super good time doing it. So this really carries over to their enthusiasm towards the subject itself.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. And looking at that, that's one thing that I absolutely love, Mart, that you included. It was lesson planning. And that's something that's very important. As we know, as educators, we have to have some sort of documentation as far as lesson plan and what it is that is involved. So the fact that you already have that built in also within that lesson, and I downloaded a document, also the lesson plan that you have available. And I'll also be sharing that a little bit about that as soon as we get into that piece, because I really do want our educators, our listeners, our people that'll be rewatching this also to be able to see what it is that you offer. Because right now I'm listening and we're going through this, but man, the graphics and what is available here is something that is great and it's very exciting. All right. So now, as far as right now, currently, are you solely just being used in Estonia, or have there been any other adoptions in other countries that have seen what your platform can do and said, "Hey, we want this too as well"?
Yes, we have a few like loan sales in UK and US. I believe we just kind of went international. I don't know, maybe 3 to 6 months ago. So we're still sort of get finding our way into these markets and figuring out the best channels and so on. But yeah, definitely Estonia is. That's also one of the things about the mindset, that building just for the local market doesn't pan out in the long run. There's just not enough people. There's 1.5 million people in Estonia roughly. Yeah, it's an easily localized product. So it's in English and Estonian, and we're likely adding new languages also in future. Um, yeah, and it's available in a way. Sorry, this is not like a plug, but just to kind of mention, because you mentioned like how does it perhaps work. The sales is that, yeah, you basically it's a license based model. It's a device based license. It's annual, and yeah, and right now it just works like this: that you basically write us and we'll have a talk. I explain you how everything works, which hopefully you find quite easy and reasonable, and then we can basically make the licenses available to you uh, for a fee. Um, and we're also having an end user version actually coming very soon, in a month, maybe a month and a half, depending on how long the submission process goes, into the Quest store at first, and then Pico store. And we're having 3-4 modules available for play, and we will be adding to those over time as well. So it should also be
Excellent.
something interesting for home users.
Sounds good. And one thing that I do love also that you mentioned is just being conscientious of possibly adding more languages. As you know, like that's
Mhm.
something that's huge for many platforms to be able to offer that. And especially in the education space, we definitely want to make
Yes.
sure that as we have students come in from all parts of the world, that they all have something that they feel comfortable with when they're doing their learning. Well, Mart, excuse me. At this time, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and share my screen because I've been waiting for this moment so we can kind of show a little bit about Futuclass and some of the lessons that are there, some of the lesson plans, and maybe you can walk us through a little bit more through that. So what I'm going to do at this time, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here, and let's go here to
I like the practical approach, so it's not just talking heads, actually.
Yes, exactly. So here we go. So I'm going to go into full screen, but everybody will
Mhm.
be able to hear. So right now here is just an example of a lesson plan that I found there in within the built-in lesson. But I just wanted to share this first, really, because for a lot of teachers and educators, it's like, well, if it doesn't have a lesson plan or it doesn't have this, then that makes it a little bit more difficult. But I wanted to share this. So tell us a little bit about, how you develop these lessons, how the lesson plan is developed, maybe within your team.
Yeah, so we have a number of teachers that we work with. We actually visit their classes, and they themselves they constantly give feedback. So we don't release a study module really until it's good enough. We find that it works without hiccups, the experience is smooth, and the learning goals are achieved. That can take, I guess, anywhere from 3 to 5 iterations. Um, and then lesson plans are born kind of in the process. So the teacher, and there's several usually that work with one module. They teach it in class, and then we observe ourselves, and they themselves get feedback from the students, and then they adjust and tune this plan until it's great, easy to use, and kind of makes sense in every way. So that's roughly the formula. It starts, there is reflection questions in the end, so that's also available as a Google Forms. Um, and on the top there is basically learning goals, pre-requirements for the student, and then a kind of brief description, how long it takes. Usually it's around, let's say, 15, 20 minutes. And then the description of what this module is exactly, and then what do you do with it. We do
Yeah.
recommend every teacher to definitely play a module at least once. They'll probably do pretty well because they know the subject inside out, to kind of get an idea, spatially, what's happening in there. But yeah, basically this lesson plan lets you run a lesson like very easily, and give hints also at different students at places where they're stuck. And you can
Yeah.
kind of cross-reference this to the teacher portal, where you then see every student and what particular step they're at in that particular module.
Yeah. I love kind of the overall, like, the simplicity of this. It's very straightforward, very easy to read, and I love the fact that you included some of these reflection questions here at the end also, just so students can reflect, and it's also for a cue for teachers to say, hey, let's take time, let's go ahead and reflect. And if we're doing this, and maybe we forgot that component, it's there in the lesson plan, and now we can go ahead and talk about this. So I absolutely love this aspect of it too as well. And now what I'm going to do is, let me go ahead and share the actual lesson, or the lesson video that we've got. So let me go ahead and go here,
Right.
and we will go to entire screen. Here we go. All right. So this is what I love here on your website. So I'll go just here to Futuclass. And then what I did is I just went here to VR lessons,
Mm-hmm.
and you have your lessons here. What I love here also, you've got your all subjects specifically for chemistry. You've got specifically for physics and other, which is great. We're going to learn how to assemble a kitchen here as well. But let's go back there to that balancing equations lesson, which is this one right here. And I'll kind of just play the little video here as you kind of describe what it is that we're seeing.
Yes, so this is a reaction balancing module. You learn to balance. You can see different representations of formulae on the reaction balancing table. So that ended really quickly. But basically, there's a left side and right side. One has reagents, the other one has products, and you need to get them in balance. And you start by working with specific models of the molecules. And then you work your way up. So you presented them in different formats with different kind of aids, and then those aids fall away, helpers in a way, visual helpers. And then in the end, you basically can do the thing on paper, or by numerically balancing, like you end up. So this is something that, like I mentioned before, can really accelerate the pace of learning for how to balance reactions.
Absolutely. And just looking at the types of lessons that you have here, and just with these short little videos, really, it it doesn't seem overwhelming. Like you said, many times it looks very well done, as far as the animation, as far as the characters, the movement, everything. It is very gamified, but it doesn't take away from what it is that you're learning. I mean, this, you still have all your lessons here, you still have your chemicals, you're working with all of this. And so that's something that I love, because oftentimes teachers may think, oh, well, this is only a gimmick, this only will work for so long, and so on. But honestly, this right here is one of the better platforms that I have seen, where it is very intuitive, and it just seems like, you could easily maneuver through this as a student and as a teacher alike too as well, and really find that added value. So altogether, Märt, how many lessons do you have for your science bundle that you have for chemistry and physics?
So currently we have 10 in chemistry, 2 in physics, and we have a number more modules in production. And then so for the school version, there's also a few additional ones that are we've kind of done as side projects, like you showed the kitchen assembly before. But if you focus on science, then so currently it's 10 physics, 10 chemistry, 2 physics. And I should also say how we decide what to develop. We ran surveys several times about the most difficult to teach topics for chemistry and physics teachers, and we have a full list, and we basically go plug them from the top. and we spend quite a bit of time about the learning outcomes and the best possible ways to teach each kind of concept. Some like redox reactions, so some can get pretty nuclear reactions can get pretty heavy, but we're doing, I think, pretty good at working on them and making them as easy and kind of spatial, bit by bit, like understandable as possible for students. So yeah, and moving by your own at your own pace is also a really big advantage. I think you alluded to before how
Yeah.
uh, perhaps the student can proceed independently and only get help when he or she actually needs it. So the teacher can also come in, doesn't need to babysit everybody in the whole class all the time, only goes to those who are in need, and that seems to work really well and kind of one up in a way teachers. At least in VR classes, it seems to us that this kind of frees the teacher up to actually focus on the places where he or she can provide like the most value to each student.
Excellent. And and that's great. Also, what I love is that I'm hearing you're getting that feedback, you're taking that back, you're working on those things and working on those lessons that you said, listening to educators with their experience, those lessons that are very difficult, I guess, maybe for them to present or maybe for students to understand, and offering a different modality for them to learn. And I think that's something that's very important, that you are listening to your consumer. And I think that that's one of the best things that I love to hear from platforms that they do, is really taking back that feedback, going back, working on it, tweaking it, and making it better. Because at the end, you really care about your end consumer, whether it's the teacher and also whether it's the student as well. So that's wonderful. Excellent. Well, I'm really excited about this. So let me ask you a couple things though. As Futuclass, continues to grow and expands, and of course
Mhm.
now, like you said, you're more from Estonia in the US. Also, I think you mentioned in the UK also as well. Growing, expanding globally. What are the goals of the platform in the end to meet the changing needs of the teachers and the students?
The goal, at least let's say 2 3 year goal, is to build out the proper set of modules that cover the curriculum. I think we're starting probably from this age where science is just starting to be taught, because our kind of sweet spot is where it's not 100% like serious kind of, because you need to put a lot of content in there and make it really kind of like a lecture too much. We find the interaction is we find that sweet spot where we can teach things via interaction. So it's a bit like do don't show, or how movies have like show don't tell. So in a way, we're trying to make you learn through doing. I think that's really powerful and memorable, and kind of where our core strengths are as well as a team. Yeah, so it's basically chemistry, physics, biology, and then we'll build up from there. So now we're covering in Estonia, it's a secondary school curriculum, so seventh to ninth grade, and then we'll likely climb up there from 10 to 12. And our aim is yeah, to become basically the best kind of gamified learning VR solution provider in the world. And I think there is quite an explosion happening in this market, because it feels like there is a cusp coming. Maybe like I can at least hear it kind of here and there. So maybe in a year or two, we'll see. I think the headsets are just getting cheaper. Um, there's a number of schools that are now kind of, after being hearing about this for a long time, seems to be ready to come in. And there's also quite a few really excellent solutions coming to market, which are game changers. So I think it's a great time for VR and education, and I think everybody's benefiting really.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I agree with that. Let me see here. I have another comment here from Flavia. It says, "Do you also do teacher training in XR learning?"
so we have done this. Also, very good question again. Thank you. We have done this in Estonia in a kind of a like a group setting. So we have like a day where 20 teachers come together, and we go through a lot of stuff, and like a 4 hour training or so. We are looking at ways how to do it efficiently abroad. We might actually have a few coming up in US in the next few months. So you can just follow our social media for those announcements. UK we haven't done yet, but we're looking into this, and then so obviously other markets as well. Um, so yes, the thing is that you want to scale it. You want to do it scalably, so you want to do like in-person training, if that works the best. If there's a way to do like kind of webinar type of stuff where people share experience, that can also work. um, yeah, that's just the short answer. So we do teacher training, uh, not exactly in this kind of it's not a 2 week course or something. So it's maybe half a day or so, but it's really like not that different from regular teaching, I think. And you'd be surprised how quickly the students understand this hardware. uh, Often it's like teachers are a bit confused, but students are like, whoa, I'm in, let's do it. So it's quite easy, I think.
Excellent. And Flavia says here, great. This is a field much needed also for us teachers, trainers at university. And yes, Flavia is at the university level. So that's something that's great. So,
This
that's
is
wonderful.
yeah, very interesting. Yeah, if our content can somehow map to what you're doing or needing to teach, then please feel free to get in touch. Yeah, definitely. I think learning at all ages and kind of levels is going to be very heavily impacted, because VR is like the perfect training machine in a way, or education machine. So I think it'll just go, it'll grow like gangbusters at one point, like really snowballing. I think we're just at the beginning of this right now. So it's
Yeah.
really great that you're looking into the future.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And one thing I just want to add that I did see or have seen here in the United States, even during COVID, it seems like before, and again, me working here in the K-12 space, always thinking like, man, why are we so much more innovative than higher ed, and we're so much more innovative. But it just seems like something happened during COVID that all of a sudden, higher ed really stepped up their game, and now you're seeing a lot of universities here in the United States that have, of course, their digital twin. They are doing AR, VR for their coursework. Students are getting goggles, attending class, they're being part of their learning. University faculty and staff are no longer siloed, where now they interact and share ideas within the classrooms uh, as they meet online. And I think that that's something that's wonderful. And like you said, that right now I'm seeing such big adoption there. And I had the privilege to interview Dr. Messina Morris from Morehouse College, and they're doing
I know.
phenomenal work there. Yeah, they're doing phenomenal work there too as well. So I'm really seeing, and just going off of Flavia's comment, absolutely, the higher ed space is definitely, to me, doing a little bit more. And it seemed like the K-12 space kind of went back a little bit, where when we came back from COVID, it's like, no, no, put all technology away. We don't want to use that anymore. And now we're slowly kind of trying to bring it back, but it's very difficult. Many teachers still are a little bit scared to bring back that tech, maybe because they associate it with COVID and they just don't want to deal with that experience anymore and all that. But like I said, it's definitely something that is the future of learning. I've always said the future of work too as well. So I'm really excited for the work that you're doing. So one last question to you,
Maybe
Mart.
before you do, I'll add
Yeah,
to that, because it was a very you made such good points. I think the two things, the two kind of bigger trends, because in a way, like teachers' profession, if it's okay to say such a thing, has not been super helped by the progress of technology in the last long time, few hundred years. You often still teach, like, there are obviously many tools that make it a lot better, but you don't teach like 1,000 students like in 1 hour or something. You don't give a class to 1,000 students, which is kind of comparable to the rate of progress in most other professions, really, aided by technology. So two things that we see happening here is, one is the kind of metaverse schools, where it doesn't really matter where you are. Like, you could be your underpants and give like a world class lesson to, like, people all over the world studying something really specific, complicated. And the other direction is basically automating a lot of this teaching, or making it like spatial, interactive, and then you can really yeah, so you can proceed a lot of the lesson content intake actually interactively, spatially. So it's even better than watching like a video of somebody talk and taking notes. It's actually you're doing the thing. So those two are, like, I think, really ways that can enable teachers to basically teach a lot more people a lot more efficiently in the coming decade too. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Yeah, there is some Zoom fatigue and so on, but I hope also that people are realizing that it's kind of positive thing that to happen. That schoolhouse is not where you necessarily go every morning like to work, but it's a place maybe where you come to do certain things, or meet together. A bit similar ideas like remote work. So
Excellent. Yeah, Amanda Macias, thank you so much for joining. She says here, education spaces trying to replicate the traditional space with technology, calling it innovative is not really being innovative. All right. So thank you so
yeah,
much for that.
it's
It says here, we now know we learn better in immersive environments.
good point. Yeah,
Excellent.
it's every new technology that comes. First of all, it's like why the VR meeting looks like you're in a boardroom. It's the first step, and then you kind of go from there. Maybe you're flying around. Maybe
Yeah.
you're flying inside your presentation. I don't know what it is, but there's something that's native to the medium that will come out of it as the next step. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. And then last question before we kind of start wrapping up, Mart. Of course, we know recently and within the past 2 months and or so, maybe a little bit over, of course, the release of a lot of AI tools that are out there. So my last question to you is, with the rise of AI technology in education, what implications do you see for the use of augmented and virtual reality in the classroom?
Um, there's a lot, and this is a very very exciting topic. I don't know if you tried using the Chat GPT, but you can basically have it do amazing tasks for you. It's not always perfect, but it's really amazing. And it's kind of a new way of creating things. Basically, you're kind of iterating with ChatGPT on what it, I guess, is working on, versus like just being on this mammoth task for a couple of hours to get some piece of writing done or whatever. Um, I see. So very directly, I see getting all kinds of hints and being able to interact like natural language, and getting information back that is relevant, and basically immediately, and on the development side, needing to basically feed a bunch of text to this uh, let's call it AI. uh, like that's like a really big win, because you basically the student again can learn basically in her own way, not just you know interactive, but really can ask in any way possible, and they'll get like an answer that is relevant based on the data that this AI entity knows. So that's massive. There is also content creation. There is like there are so many things like for example this Ready Player Me, like the Avatar platform, just realized released like a alpha version of the Avatar API, where you can basically say what kind of texture you want to your shirt and pants, and then boom, you have it. I typed in something very stupid. I think I put three-headed monkey on a keep cup or something, and I got something. It wasn't like the biggest artwork, but so there is all the content creation will have huge uh, upsides in a sense. Obviously, it will develop to become more like uh, there'll be a lot of noise too, but I think overall the things that can come out of it are amazing. I don't know. What do you think would happen? What kind of tools are you looking forward to most, or what kind of fields of education you
Uh,
see?
I don't know. Just for me, it's really just tools to help teachers get back time. I
Mm-hmm.
know that, right now ChatGPT, like for many schools, is blocked, and it's okay. I see the terms of agreement. You got to be 18 and older, but don't block it for the teachers. This could be a very useful tool for teachers for actually learning the tool, number one, embracing that tool, because at the end of the day, the students may not be using it in school, but they're going to go home and they're going to end up using it. So we need to make sure we have those conversations where, instead of fearing new technology, we embrace it. We kind of start learning a little bit more of it and start feeling comfortable with it. And oftentimes it's just, I feel that there's a lot of fear that's put out into the education space, and then teachers are just panicking, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job. I'm not going to have a job. My job security, this, in anything, and in any career, you have to be able to adapt and then change and embrace the tech that is coming and learn it, because in learning it, you feel more comfortable with it. And then in learning it, I feel that you also feel empowered to
Mm-hmm.
say, like, hey, I shouldn't fear the tech. I can control the tech too, as well, as far as, inputs, the better input, the better output I'm going to get, say like Chat GPT. But doing those things can really help, grow one personally, professionally, but also to continue to learn and enhance learning for all students, because this is not going to go away. And what we're seeing now is probably the worst that we'll see. And as years go by, it's going to get better and better and better and better. So we just need to embrace the tech. And that's why I've been a huge proponent since 2018, like you mentioned, about
Mhm.
AR, VR. And then, of course, now with AI tools, it's something that's very important in our landscape. And it's going to be part of our landscape from here on out. And I've seen also and here's the thing, university professors have been able to adapt to this new technology a lot better than what I've seen in the K-12 space. And
Mm.
even my doctoral professors have said, hey, we know this is out there. If you use it, please make sure you cite where you used it, why you used it, how you used it, and we're okay, because there isn't like a plan set. They're still developing what is going to happen, but they're saying for now, just let us know, and don't just turn something in, have it done completely through Chat GPT, but let us know where you used it, how and why. And of course, you're still going to have to cite your sources for your research and so on. But I mean, even they have been able to adapt to that situation. So, yeah, definitely a lot of learning, a lot of adapting, but I think that it's going to have a lot of great things in the long run for education, for student, for learning, and for all fields altogether, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of grading and kind of ensuring that the student really understands and obtains all the skills, yeah, you need to rework some pretty tried and true methods over
Yeah.
time. But I think also it's good because the new world is coming, and it's a bit like trying to make people look through things in the library very hard, where you could just Google stuff.
Yes.
Kind of going against it. So yeah, gotta roll with the
Absolutely.
times.
Excellent. Well, Mart, thank you so much for a great conversation this morning. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you sharing. And, I'm really excited about what the future of Futuclass is going to have. If what it is that I'm seeing right now is any indication of where it's going, I'm really excited to see the progression within the next couple of months and even in the next couple of years, to be able to provide a different modality to learn science and to really engage your students. And so thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for being here today, also, as well. But before we go, I always love to end the show with the following three questions. And I know that it was very interesting because I forgot to send you the questions ahead of time. So you might be put on the spot here. But
Real reactions.
yeah, real reaction. So, question number one, if you're familiar with Superman, his weakness was kryptonite. That is what weakened Superman. So, I want to ask you, in the current state of education, what would you say is your kryptonite?
My as in personal or companies.
No, yours is impersonal, like what you're seeing. Yeah. Or
Uh,
companies. Yeah, let's go ahead and that. If that makes it easier,
okay, so you
we'll go with
mean
that too.
something that is like something that can hurt you, basically.
Yeah, something that weakens you, like, oh, I wish that they wouldn't do that, or.
um, like I think I don't know if that's like a good answer, but like one thing is that it's quite opaque, like who has VR headsets basically, and who is like open to explore. Defining those. I actually asked ChatGPT the other day. He gave some schools. I don't know. I have to follow up with him to see if it's true or not. Uh, so really, like this coming together of yeah, people who basically want to make this happen. I feel like uh, I really thought of this just now, but I'm just thinking that we're struggling quite a lot to like find the market. I wish there was like a easier channel. I guess I don't know if there is some education innovators. Club that gathers people who love into XR into some channel, and then they could just talk about it. Um, yeah, I think that's one. And then maybe I also wish that there is kind of this joke that in enterprise market you have, well, let's say consumer market, you get fast to market and there is little money. Enterprise market, it's very slow to sell something, but there's a lot of money. And in education, it's slow to sell and there's little money. So it's a joke, but I think it's actually changing now quite rapidly because education, on the other hand, is basically the most important thing. Like, if you're thinking about the future, what can you do to make it better? It's basically better education. And it seems that a lot of edtech has been rising on the rise in the last decade, even I would say. So yeah, so yeah, what I wanted to say was that I hope that there is maybe some special education version coming out of a headset someday. I think that would really be useful. So because enterprise is a bit of a different market, they would pay a lot for the solution, and consumer would, basically all have their own interest. I feel like education is exactly in between. It would really help to kind of yeah,
Yeah. Excellent. That's a
have
good
a separate
answer.
version in a way.
That is a really good answer. You really did well on that because I do agree with you at on what you said. And but like you said, even like you said that joke, I was like, wow, like that really a lot of truth in that for sure. But yeah, so I agree with that. All right. So question number two. All right.
Yes.
And again, this one again might throw you off a little bit because and you have to really think on the spot here is if Mart can have any billboard or could have a billboard, they're in
Mm.
Estonia, a billboard, a big sign with anything on it, what would it be and why?
Yeah. Think I've heard it in Tim Ferriss' show, like probably answered in 100 different ways, but I don't remember any of them. So I'll try to make up my own. I actually, well, it's a bit easy because I don't know if it's easy, but so my car number plate reads like "Be good," which has like different variations. It's kind of be
Uh-huh.
good at what you do, be good towards other people, and be good in traffic. Don't drive too fast, and so on. Uh, but maybe that's too cheesy. Hmm. Like be more, I think is a pretty common, but it's also a bit cheesy. I think maybe let's do the third question, and maybe if I get some brilliant idea, meanwhile I'll come back to this. But
All right. Okay. So here's the third question. And I don't know, maybe you might have to think about this one too, or maybe not. But I always like to ask, let's say that this was the Futuclass podcast and you, Mart, are the host. I am your guest. What is one question you'd like to ask me?
hmm, I think because you have such a long or a wide spectrum kind of vision towards everything is that's happening in edtech, I wonder what are you most excited about, or maybe you can even point out some concrete companies of the use cases that make you the most excited, uh, that would come to market or already are in the market
Oh
in the
yeah.
next year or
So
two.
right now, currently, there I have been approached by a couple of companies that I think are doing some phenomenal work that for the education space. One of them is Adapter, and they are out of Sweden, and they've developed or they're working on developing it. Right now it's for iOS and Android, but
Ooh.
doing it for Chromebooks as well. And what it is you as a learner, let's say that, and this was geared for a specific niche of students that need additional supports. So let's say that they have, they need some learning supports. They can't engage very well in school, but they can extend the learning at home. So what can happen is they take a picture of what it is that they're learning. All right. So it could be like a picture, let's say, of a pyramid. And then what it's going to do is it's going to bring up facts about the pyramid. It's going to give them a little mini lesson that they can go ahead and watch. And then it's going to give them some questions that they can go ahead and look at to kind of extend the lesson from the classroom outside the classroom. And to me, that's a very exciting use case for AI and being able to pull up that information. The other one is being able to create a lesson plan, or actually create lessons right on the spot. So I go into this platform, I type in water cycle, and it's immediately going to give me some slides dealing with the water cycle, some questions, and I can go ahead and share that with my students. So again, it goes back to saving time for the teacher, but also extending the learning for the student. And so those are some of the things that I am really excited about in the education space. Obviously, along with AR, VR, because that's always been my first passion, which is again providing different modalities for students to engage in the learning, not so much, teacher centered, but student centered as well. So those are some of the things that I'm really excited about to see more of within the next couple of years and just see where education goes.
Thank you. That's a great answer. Also, It's really interesting how you think that basically it's like you want to teach something about a topic. It's kind of like a Wikipedia article, but maybe some sort of AI middle person can put this in the format that is most relevant to the particular person asking this question, right? Like, explain blockchain to a whatever on a seventh grader, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, but also with like visuals and all kinds of things. Yeah, that is really exciting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think on that billboard I'd also put something about trying VR, but I feel like there should be some killer app that makes it like really worth doing for every person on the planet. I'm not sure we're there yet, but yeah, maybe when one really cool headset model comes out that's like light and does magical stuff, I would promote that.
Yeah, no, for sure. That'd be very exciting. But like you said, maybe just like a generic trial, just so everybody experiments, see what is there, see what is possible. And then of course, you've got different platforms such as yourself that is offering, the in the science space, and also just the cost, I think too. The cost of entry for AR VR, I think that's often a barrier too because of the headsets, and but I think like you said, maybe as time goes on, the headsets will be a little bit a lot cheaper, more accessible, and there'll be maybe some interoperability between platforms too as well, so that everybody can be able to meet all together. It doesn't matter what headspace headset you have and what platform, but there's some method where everybody will be able to meet all together at once. So that would be really great. Definitely love to try it out. And one last question here, Mart. I have a question here. It says, is there a demo lesson that Amanda can try out right now on
Um,
Oculus?
there is actually. So if you search for Futuclass education in the Oculus Store, it's in App Lab. It's pretty hard to get education apps published, but hopefully one day we'll get there. Yeah, so Futuclass education, and there's four modules, four modules demos, four module demos. Yeah, demos
Yes.
of four modules available for you to try. And then yeah, if you're interested in more for your school, then just send us a message, and we'll have like an end user full version coming in, yeah, like month and a half,
Excellent.
as I said before.
Awesome. Well, it seems that she found it. She put here, never mind, I found it. So she found it. Amanda's great. She's definitely going to get on there. And I'm pretty sure that she's going to share her findings and so on. So definitely a great person to get in contact with. So Amanda, I also encourage you to make sure that you follow Futu Class on Twitter as well. So make sure that you connect with them. And I guess that would be the best way also to be able to connect with you, right, Mart, through Twitter. Would that be okay for somebody to
Yeah,
DM
Photoglass
you?
Twitter is great. Also, our homepage, we have like a chat button, but I think easier is that. Or if you want email, just info@photoclass.com is very. Also, we read all of them actively, so
Perfect.
yeah,
Excellent.
Twitter.
We're all right. Well, Mar, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate you sharing your passion, sharing the future of Futu class with us too, as well, and what it is that you're trying to accomplish and your mission to bring science to life and really engage students. And of course, I am excited, again, like I mentioned, to see where you will be within the next 3, 6, 9, and even a year because of the work that you're doing, and also just how great your lessons look right now. I'm really excited, and hopefully we'll be able to see a lot more Futu class here in the US, as many people are starting to really open up about new technologies, new modalities, and AR, VR, AI. All of that will be here for a while. So we definitely need to embrace it and learn a little bit more about it and learn more of it, so we can definitely make an impact in the education space. So thank you so much for all our audience members that were currently watching. I know Amanda was here, Flavia was here. Thank you so much for your comments. Those of you that will be catching this on the replay, thank you so much as always for all of your support. Please make sure that you stop by our website at myedtech.life so you can check out this episode and the other 174 amazing episodes where you can learn from amazing educators and creators. Take a little bit of that knowledge, sprinkle it onto what you are already doing great, and just continue to move the education needle forward. Please make sure also you stop by our merch store so you can continue to support our mission for connecting educators and creators one show at a time. But as always, my friends, until next time, don't forget, stay techie.